You might have heard of test-driven development before. That's essentially where you write all your tests at the start and then you write the code that makes them pass later on. Now, I'll be honest, I'm not a massive fan of TDD, and I never have been. I think it leads to quite restrictive and unimaginative code that takes a long time to write, and it suffers from the sunk cost fallacy quite a bit too. And that's where you feel like you have to stick to a poor architecture because you've already written the tests for it. Having said that though, there is one really useful way that test-driven development can be used, in my opinion, and that's called test-driven refactoring. Test-driven refactoring is actually as straightforward as it sounds. It's the process of using tests to guide your refactoring, and it uses the same red-green refactor cycle that TDD uses. Red-green refactor is the process cycle where, in the case of refactoring, you start in the green, all your code is working and all your tests are passing. Then you do some refactoring, and what that does is it will initially break all of your tests, so you move into the red stage. And then as you refactor more the structure you want it to be and it creates your end result, you slowly start seeing those tests passing again, and eventually you move back up to the green. This is good because as you start to refactor your code, if any changes break a test, then you'll know immediately, and that makes it safe to explore and modify your code. The tests act like a safety net basically to guide your refactoring. So let's have a look at an example in some code. So here we've got a function called getNameString, and that takes in an array of people, and that's been exported here. And then inside I've got a Jest file here called test.jest. And this is just a basic Jest file that calls our getNameString function, and it passes in an array of people, and it's looking for a specific result. The result of this function is expected to be all of the name properties of these people sort of concatenated into a long string with commas and a space in between each one. So I'm passing in 4 objects into this function, John, Paul, George, and Ringo, and it's returning a string with all of their names like this. So the function is taking this people array, then it's looping through it and pushing the name of that people array into another variable called names. Then it's doing another loop through the array and it's building up the string as a result. So this is the code we're going to refactor, and this isn't the nicest function in the world. It's doing quite a lot of messy stuff here. It's very procedural. It's got these 2 for loops. There's a for loop up here and there's a for loop down here. It's got these 2 variables that are really just being used to kind of manage memory throughout the function, and they're not being returned or anything like that. So there's quite a lot we can do to refactor this function. So what we're going to do first is run our Jest test by I've got a package.json for Jest. So my package.json's got an npm script in it that just does a Jest. So I can run npm run test, and that will run our Jest file, and it will pass the test because we've got, if I just wait for it here, you can see that the test has passed. I've entered in the object, and I've got the object that I wanted back. So let's start refactoring this code. Well, the first thing we're going to do is actually just delete everything from our getNameString function, and then we're going to run the test again. So what this is going to do is it's going to prove that, obviously, we're going to break the test. And this is that red-green refactor cycle. We started off at green, and then we've deleted everything, so we've broken the tests, and we're now at red. So then we can go ahead and write a new version of this function. So this is just refactoring it into, if you watch my other video called Refactoring onto one line, we're actually going to take this function and just refactor it onto one line of code. So if we do return people.map, map the name property from the people, and then just do join on the string. So this function now is doing exactly the same as what we were doing before. It's taking an array of people, it's taking the name property, and then it's returning a comma separated string. So if I run the tests again now, because we've got the same input coming into this function and we've got the same output coming out of the function, then you can see the tests are passing again. So this test here, this has given us a really good way of being allowed to completely wipe the data out of our function, completely rewrite that function from scratch, and know that we're going to get the same result out of it. So in this process, we've stuck to the red-green refactor method. We've broken the tests, refactored the code, and then eventually arrived back at the green state again, with all of the original tests still passing. With test-driven refactoring, the tests are really there to help you and to sanity check the work that you're doing to modify your code base. And the main thing that they give you is that reassurance that you haven't introduced many new bugs during your refactoring. But what about the actual refactoring itself? Well, I actually have a whole series here on my YouTube channel called Refactoring by Example, and that gives you a bunch of tips and advice for ways that you can refactor your own code. So why not go and check that out? And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. My name is James Charlesworth, and I'll see you in this video right here.